We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's December 14th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Cheji.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. We are seeing a measles scare around the world. The number of measles patients nearly doubled in October compared to a year ago. South Korea is no exception. The KDCA said as of Monday, Korea had diagnosed 8 people with measles. All 8 caught this infectious disease this year abroad. Measles spreads easily and causes red blotchy rashes that usually appear first on the face, and symptoms include fever, a runny nose, and tiny white spots inside the mouth. And moving on to news in the States, according to a recent survey conducted by Bankrate, nearly 6 out of 10 Americans felt as if their economy is in recession. A recession is when there's negative growth for 2 consecutive quarters. While there are no stats or facts backing the statement up, most American households said they're feeling financial pressure regardless of income. Most pointed to high inflation, soaring interest rates, and changes in income as specific reasons to view the economic situation of their country as a recession. And staying in the States, a Time report has recently found that apps and websites using AI to digitally remove clothing from women's photos without their consent have been gaining massive popularity. Social network analysis firm Graphica found that in September alone, 24 million people visited such services that would use AI to generate fake nude images. Now, experts have since raised concerns on the potential proliferation of deepfake nudes, especially since these apps are accessible and openly advertised on platforms like Reddit and Telegram. Officials pointed to how these easy-to-access AI services could usher a new phase in non-consensual pornography. As of now in the States, there is no federal law that explicitly bans deepfake pornography. It only does in the case of faked child sexual abuse material. And here in Korea, the creator of such content can only be held accountable if the victim is identifiable. Let's now hear what our panelists have to say on this issue. Walter, I don't know about you, but when I heard this, I was really angered to see AI being exploited this way. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously this is extremely disgusting. But the thing is, it actually it's been around for quite some time. So it's just what's happened recently with AI technology has made it more believable. And obviously, the negative side to this is that it can ruin one's reputation, especially obviously for women. It is a very, very big concern, and they need, their privacy as well as, we've had problems in the past with, hidden cameras, etc., etc. But yes, this AI technology of using it to create fake nudes, it's absolutely deplorable. And because this technology is moving so quickly, I think the laws need to be moved just as far so we can stop it.
Exactly. I think that's always a debate that we have whenever we're talking about AI and technology. We say that we want to see development in terms of technology and AI, but if there's too many regulations, it would definitely hamper that. But at the same time, if we're going to see so much exploitation to the point that we're seeing sexual abuse on the internet, don't we need regulations? What are your thoughts on that?
That's very true, and I totally agree with Walter. It's very disturbing, and I actually came across another news report recently. It was a story in Korea. This woman, she made some photos using this popular AI app. It's gone viral on social media recently, but the app apparently made some semi-nude photos of the person who was using it, and she was really embarrassed because it was being spread among other people. And it is really disturbing, and AI, it shouldn't be exploited, and no wonder why it's a very advancing technology, and we even have an AI summit that's newly opened this year. So we really do have to come up with these strict regulations in advance in order to prevent any sort of these privacy violations from happening.
I completely agree, especially now that we're living in a generation where generative AI is just like a pal. We're going to be living with it, so we would need to see really strict yet flexible regulations take place in order for us to see both development and no more exploitation come simultaneously. Now, that was our news feed for this Thursday. We're now going to switch gears to our main discussion topic. We're just days ahead of wrapping up the year, and Christmas is fast approaching, which means it's the season for nonprofits to launch their year-end campaigns. In other words, it's giving season. My AI voice secretary will tell you more in detail.
Winter months are typically when people feel more giving. mainly by giving out donations or taking part in fundraisers. According to an M+R benchmarks report, roughly a quarter of all donations come in December. A growing number of people who are participating in this giving season are those in their 20s and 30s.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today, why a growing number of people in their 20s and 30s are giving and donating during this year-end season. And T, let's first find out what exactly led more millennials and Gen Z to be so kind and caring during this time of the year.
Well, first of all, towards the end of the year, we can commonly witness an increase in donations. And interestingly, the trend of donations from millennials and Gen Z donors has been on a steady rise. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, the younger generation emerged as one of the primary forces behind donation drives as well. So as you see on the screen, this is a graph showing the increase in donations between the years 2020 and 2021. And one of the most interesting features of this generation is their inclination towards making smaller yet frequent donations that stem from their values and sense of fulfillment, which comes from doing social good. So it's really welcoming to see our generation engaging in more of these activities.
I know, it's always a pleasure to hear that our generation is leading like a positive societal trend. Walter, would you like to add on?
Well, to add on to that, yes, it's said that amongst the MZers that the donations are part of our lives now, and even in times of bad economy, we are still willing to give, which is still great. So we aren't just the thumb generation, we're also the giving generation, which I love being a part of. But our generation likes to look beyond more than just monetary donations as well, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But other forms of donation come in, time spent volunteering as well, giving blood donations, those kind of donations. They don't just have to be for charities, they also are for movements for social issues. And we are the generation to change these traditional norms.
Exactly. And as the new generation, I'm guessing that there are many innovative and unique ways that make our generation's donation styles, stand out compared to the older generation, right?
That's right. Well, personalized donations have become a popular trend recently. So more and more people are looking for causes that align with their interests and values rather than donating to a fundraising organization. Now, with a variety of pathways and ways to donate, the process has become less intimidating and more enjoyable for them as well. Now, volunteering while pursuing your hobbies like traveling or exercising is becoming increasingly popular as well. For instance, there are activities like hiking and flogging, where you can hike while collecting litter along the trail, and similarly surfing, flogging as well. And you can also engage in runs as well as you donate the fee for the running. And like I said, flogging involves collecting trash while you're doing some sort of sports activity. And these are just a few examples of how you can combine your interest in volunteering. And there are also goods that are being bought or purchased by our generation as well. So there are badges, bracelets, etc. And others include hair donations as well, other than these goods. Sharing hair for cancer patients is trending on social media platforms as well. And there are also proactive donations where you install apps and you can pay or donate money for every step you take as well. And you can also be committed to companies that work on environmental protection, etc. Right. So there are so many ways, creative ways of how us, the millennials, engage in these activities.
I think you mentioned a really good point, goods. I think if I could share a personal anecdote, a lot of my friends who are couples are actually going out of their way to find good rings that actually have a good purpose. So for instance, if they buy a ring, a portion of that money goes to a nonprofit organization or a fundraising campaign. And I thought that was a really good trend, because now, though it's for our personal pleasure, like, celebrating your love with your partner, it's also quite worth noting that as a couple, you're willing to donate to a good cause while celebrating your love. Now, are there any other unique ways that we donate compared to the older generation?
Well, I guess when you think of Korea these days, you think of K-pop and you think of the idol fandom as well. So they've been a big part of contributing to the donation culture that we have here in Korea. Now, idol companies in the past have encouraged people to help, save the environment by reducing the amount of disposable waste. As we know these days, people are using their tumblers more. Even the cafes are getting involved, which is great. Now, the MZers they love to be challenged. I know that, Yeon, you love to be challenged as well. You did the slick back challenge, though it wasn't for a cause, but it was something that we love to do as a generation. So there has been other challenges to raise awareness, such as the hand wash challenge or the safe hands challenge. That was around the time of COVID, where basically people were uploading them washing their hands for 20 seconds, but doing it in creative ways, which was quite interesting. Obviously, the world's probably most popular challenge that raises awareness is the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS, and also Movember, where in November, which is just past, men usually grow mustaches and raise awareness for prostate cancer. There are all these fun, innovative ways to donate, and that is another thing that, you know, MZers love to do, is we love to post about it.
Exactly.
We love social media, so we want to show people that we are donating, which is good as well, but I would probably donate a little bit secretively. Like, I don't want people to brag, but it is a good way to spread the awareness of something. So I also back this.
I think it's a perspective issue. For instance, social media could be a great platform to facilitate better donation and fundraising campaigns because, as you mentioned, I think it targets the FOMO culture, the fear of missing out, wanting to keep on trend. But as you mentioned too, there is that sentiment where we want to keep our donations and fundraising quite low key.
Yes.
Because, you know, we're doing it for an altruistic cause, but no matter what you're doing it for, the fact that you're donating is definitely worth noting, and it's obviously growing among our generation. And we asked our viewers if they've given anything out, whether that be in the form of community service or donations. Here's what 3 of them had to say. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with EXO. EXO said, "My school used to arrange donation camps every month for the orphanage kids. I've donated food, old clothes, and some school stuff. We also gave them handmade cards on festivals." Benny said, "Our family has donated clothes to typhoon victims because we need to give back as an act of kindness despite the struggles. I've donated a church in St. Jude Hospital for children with cancer for many years and I'm grateful to be financially able to." That was Hal. Now, all of our viewers do have many experience on donation, which really adds weight to the claim that it's a growing trend among our generation. But now we're going to include an actual nonprofit organizer who runs such donations and fundraisers in our talks. Stay tuned for a live interview. To better find out how our generation is giving and donating during this year-end season, we're going to include an organizer of such donations and fundraisers. It's Shin Sung-gyu, a co-founder of Yana, a Christian nonprofit organization that supports orphans and other children in need. Welcome, Sung-gyu.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us first about Yana, your nonprofit organization, and the different donations or fundraisers you're holding at the moment. And also, would you say a growing number of millennials and Gen Z are taking part in such charity efforts?
Yes, indeed. Although lion's share of our donations still come from older generations, we are seeing increasing pattern of younger people giving. I'll just explain our donation approach, fundraising approaches by describing 2 of our signature programs. One is called MDS, it's Monthly Dream Savings. This is a program where we match a child who lives in a welfare center in Korea with a family, mostly in the United States. The family sets aside a fixed amount of money every month, and when a child who's an infant gets matched, you know, that savings can actually accumulate over the years. And that money is used when the child leaves the welfare center, usually at age 18, for the purpose of education, housing, and getting training for career opportunities, that sort of thing. But hopefully, over the years, not just giving the money, the family also takes an active interest in the child. They communicate with each other, birthday cards, Christmas gifts, and when they visit Korea, they also stop by and see the child, spends time with the child. And over the years, if they develop a relationship, they lead to another program of ours called YSAP, Yana Study Abroad Program. And this is where we bring the child from Korea to the United States. I mean, most of them cannot be adopted. So we bring them over as international students, and they are matched with families here locally, and they're raised. We at IANA believe that every child deserves a healthy family setting to grow up and be nurtured. And of course, that's not reality, but we try to mimic this as much as we can. So these children come over, and usually when they're 6th or 7th grade, and they go through the whole education process. We have 4 of them in college right now. And because the expenses are involved in educating these children from middle school all the way up to college is so high, we actually run fundraisers for YSAP. So, there are people who actually give for this particular purpose or even for a particular child. And what we are doing is basically running these donations in 2 different ways. One is engaging high-profile individuals and families, as well as organizations in churches who would actually give regular sums toward this program. And we also run Giving Tuesday or holiday type of fundraisers. We actually put out word online and digital media and all that.
Right.
And
Sung-kyu,
this is
I
why
think
we are
that's, sorry to interrupt. I think that's a great way that's targeting a lot of people in their 20s and 30s because, as you mentioned, online methods are definitely captivating the younger population. Now, due to time, I would now like to move on to the second question. Chihi, could you ask that, please?
Sure. So we are seeing a growing number of millennials and Gen Z engaging in donations. Why do you think this is the case?
Well, I think while older generations give because, they have certain beliefs that they've held for a long time, I think younger generation are captivated, motivated by certain values that they hold. It could be inclusivity, it could be sustainability. For us, it's basically what we call family equity. Every child deserves a family, and that is not the case. So when those stories are told, young people, I think, are motivated by that. They think about how they have wonderful families themselves, and there are so many others that do not. And this is the motivation, and they reach out. The amounts might be small, but they actually increase those amounts and give on a regular basis. It's great.
That's quite interesting. But compared to the older generations, how do people from our generation, namely millennials and Gen Zers, donate?
Well, I think most people now are used to giving online. But I think the millennials and Gen Zs, they really are more encouraged when the method or the channel becomes more interactive or sometimes even gamified. So they want to see, Giving Tuesday, for example, we have constant clock running, how close we're getting to the goal. Or for YSAP students I was talking about, we put up their annual tuition and expenses, and we actually have a clock for each child. And, as they get closer to the target amount, you can actually see it. I think that kind of makes things more interesting for the younger donors.
I think that's a fascinating point. Gamification, also using online sources to better encourage our generation for contributing to charity causes is a positive light in the right direction. Thank you so much, Sung-kyu. It was a pleasure hearing from you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right. And before we end off, why don't we each go around and share our potential plans or ideal types of donations or any causes or contributions to charity?
Sure. So actually, I've been making monthly donations to 2 foundations, UNICEF we all know of, and the Child Fund Korea, or the 초록우산 어린이 재단 in Korean. And it's been a couple of years, and I actually think sharing these things is quite positive because it could spread to others. The motivation could spread among others. And so my plan is to continue doing that throughout the year, next year. And additionally, I made one-time donations as well during crises. like the Ukrainian war or the earthquake in Turkey or the massive flooding that happened here in the country last year as well. And during a recent discussion with one of our panelists of News Generation, we expressed our desire to engage in more volunteer work as well. Instead of just making donations, we could actually go for helping out in orphanages or for the rescue dogs in shelters as well.
Very briefly, I'm just awed. Why do you think you guys are doing that though?
It's just that we are seeing so much news related to crises and how we're seeing the gap between the living standards. And we just want to make a difference and contribute. We can't just be sitting there and watching all these news. I mean, we're people who do news as well.
Right.
And I always wonder, like, what we can do, even if it's just a small step, what we can do to make a difference. And if we can be part of that change, then I think we are, not just myself, but all the millennials are willing to engage in these donations or even activities to actually take part.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think our generation, a special trait that we have is we feel that we're proactive and we can cause and bring out change. What are your plans, Walter?
Well, I guess compared to Chihi, I feel a little bit bad because I don't donate at the moment to any charity. But however, I do have a future plan, not just like donation, but voluntary work. But it's also a life lesson because as I have a daughter, I would like her to understand how privileged she is as a person. So, she will able to understand that she needs to love everybody in the exact same way. So I do plan to go to work with disabled funds as well as homeless, etc., etc. That is something that I am sticking to. I promise myself that I will do, and it's a life lesson not just for me, but for my daughter and for her generations to come.
Exactly. I think that's a great message we can share to our future generations because our generation is often stereotyped as an individualistic generation. But I think when it comes to donations or charity work, we really all unite in the same of a common cause. And then as an advocate of the saying, a little help can make a big change, let's use this year-end giving season to actually open our hearts to those in need. And in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Chijihi.
Thank you.
And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.